best guess on how many trades occur in the top 10?
Within the top 10, it's going to come down to does somebody trade up for the fourth quarterback? Or do the Patriots get blown away with an offer? To this point, they've not gotten the offer that's made them consider moving. Is there an offer out there? Is it Mike Ditka style, your next 2 drafts to move up? That would move a lot of different people. But we know Robert Kraft said publicly they want to get a quarterback here. I would say I'd put the over-under. This is not betting advice, just to make abundantly clear here. 1.5 trades in the top 10. I don't think it's going to be completely wild, 5 trades and, Monty going up and back like he did last year, just because, there's a bunch of teams that it seems would like to trade up and make sure they get an offensive lineman. There's a whole bunch of offensive linemen, 6-7 guys that are going to go in round 1 in this draft. You've got a bunch of teams that are interested in the corners. I'm just not sure that those guys get pushed up into the top half of round 1. And there's a whole bunch of teams that would love to trade down. The Cardinals have been open to it. The Chargers would love to trade down from 5. The Broncos at 12 would love to trade down. There's some GMs like, Seattle with John Schneider, who every year the Seahawks seem to trade down. They're sitting there at number 16. They could be a candidate to trade down as well. At the top of 2, there's a bunch of wide receiver needy teams. I would say this. I think we get more trades. There's more possibility of trades in the bottom 10 than the top 10, just because you look at the number of teams that need a wide receiver who are at the top of 2. Plus, if Bo Nix is sliding down into that bottom 10 in the first round, there could be somebody who decides to vault up and get the 5th-year option. I think you'll get a lot of action down there in the 20s would be my prediction for tomorrow night.
And I'm sorry if I'm cannibalizing any of your what's more likelies that's coming up. Have I approached? Have I broached?
That's close.
Okay. Your best guess, Tom Pelissero, more wide receivers or quarterbacks taken in the first round?
I had this conversation with a GM who told me I was out of my mind on this, but when I ran through it this morning and placed the guys where I think they're going to go, I came up with 7 wide receivers in round 1. Because you've obviously got the top 3 guys everybody's talked about with Marvin Harrison, the guy you just had sitting in this chair, Roma Dunze, who kept it warm for me, which I do appreciate here.
Especially since you're not wearing any socks.
That's right, exactly. And you got Malik Neighbors, who's also going to be a high draft pick here.
That's 3. You got the kid from Virginia.
Brian Thomas Jr., the other LSU wide receiver, who that one's got a little bit more variance. He could go in the middle of round 1. He could go at the end of round 1, but I think that in all likelihood he gets taken. You got Keon Coleman from Florida State, who's dropped out of every mock draft since he ran 4.6 at the Combine, but the fastest guy in the gauntlet drill this year. When you talk to coaches really like him. He was a basketball player at Michigan State. He hasn't filled out totally because he was training for 2 sports. So he's got room to grow. He's a big guy, and his play speed is really fast. He's one that I think everybody's going to sleep on here. I would not be surprised at all if he comes off later on in round 1. Xavier Legette, another one from South Carolina. He's the guy who did run fast. He ran like 4.39. He's a bigger guy, 1 year of production, but I think that he ends up getting vaulted into round 1. And then there's somebody else who's going to go. It's probably Xavier Worthy would be the 7th, the fastest guy and one of the cleanest prospects.
What about the other Texas wide receiver? What about Adonai Mitchell? What about him?
He's another possibility. So is Ladd McConkey. Right now, if I had to guess, I'd say they're probably into 2, but they're all that's what I'm talking about with there's going to be a run on wide receivers, let's say from like the early 20s straight through 40. How quickly do those guys go off? And once they start going, as you know, all of a sudden then everybody might panic and decide we got to trade up or we're going to run out of all these. It happened last year when there was that run of picks between Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, and somebody else went 3 picks in a row in the 20s.
Yes.
And it's because teams looked at this and they're going, well, if we don't go now, we're going to miss out. And so people get aggressive with trades.
So you're saying more receivers than quarterbacks?
I would say more receivers than quarterbacks. I think this was one of his questions.
Is it?
But I still have 6 quarterbacks.
Sorry if did I hit you? Did I hit it? Okay.
No.
I don't know.
5 or 6 quarterbacks, and I would say 6 or 7 wide receivers in round 1.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.